Hi everybody, this is Bastiaan, and today I played against the Polish opening. So I'm black, and my opponent opens with d4. I respond with d5, bishop to b2, the standard continuation. And here I can play e5, taking control of the center, but this allows white to capture my pawn, whereas I can capture his. And it looks like a bad deal because I'm losing a central pawn for a flanked pawn. There's no need to give white an opportunity of an attack, so the more cautious e6 is played. Now I'm attacking his pawn, and he plays pawn to g3, looking for a double fianchetto of the bishops, but his b4 pawn is hanging, and that's one of the traps in the Polish. If bishop takes pawn, he can recapture my pawn on g7 and trap my rook. So we can't take the pawn yet. An in-between move like knight to f6 is sufficient, and this forces white to defend his pawn with a3. Play continues with c5, and at this point, if white takes my pawn, I can recapture with the bishop and get free development. However, white pushes his pawn to b5. His pawn looks a little bit overextended, but it does prevent my knight from developing to his best squares. So I develop my knight to d7. Not much choice. He develops his knight to h3, looking to keep the diagonal open. And here I violate opening theory by moving the same piece twice. Later analysis has shown that this move is actually best, so sometimes you just have to play by your feeling. And I play my knight to b6. Pawn d3 and pawn to d4. Now I was thinking, if my opponent captures my pawn, I can recapture it the knight and once again get free development for my pieces, but he doesn't, and once again he pushes his pawn forward. But this leaves white with another interesting problem. Now he has blocked his own diagonal for his b2 bishop, and the center is becoming locked up. His bishop is becoming more and more useless. So I develop my bishop to d7, attacking his pawn. So he pushes his pawn to defend his overextended pawn on b5, but in doing so he's no longer guarding the b4 square. So my bishop goes to b4 check, and he plays c3, kicking back the bishop, but also completely locking out his own bishop. So I retreat my bishop to h5, using two miter pieces to block his pawn advance, but also keeping long-term pressure on the enemy king with a pin. So white continues development with knight to g5. I'm not too impressed, and just castle. There's no immediate threat. And here he plays h4. So the ideas have shifted. The pawn advance On the right side is blocked by minor pieces. One advance in the center is blocked by pawns. Now the action is shifting to the left. He's developing pieces and pushing pawns forward. Probably going to do a pawn storm to attack my king. So rook to e8, looking to push my own pawn on the e file. Here he plays e3, and it's nice to point out that after such an unconventional opening and gameplay, white is still left with a solid looking pawn structure, as am I, and he can even redevelop his bishop to another diagonal to give it some active play. So the position is just about equal, and white hasn't really made any mistakes so far. So I just continue to push the pawn. e5, looking to open up the e file. And here my opponent plays the first move I disagree with. He plays f3 in order to prevent further pawn advance and lock up of the center, and perhaps get more support for a pawn storm for pawns on g4 and e4 of himself. I immediately exchange pawns, and here we see the problems white is facing. I have two pieces that are attacking the white king, and white can't use his pawns to recapture my pawn on d4. So he's already in some sort of trouble. Has to develop his queen and has to recapture with the queen. Queen goes to d4, and now my queen goes to e7, making a battery on the half open file. Bishop goes to c1 to protect the e3 pawn, and here I embark on a long remaneuvering of my own knight to get it back to where the action is. There's no longer a significant threat of the b5 pawn, and I might even think of redeveloping the bishop to attack the queen, and behind it the e3 pawn. So it might take some time, but my pieces are going to become much stronger after redevelopment. So white plays bishop to e2, getting ready to castle and using his bishop to block the attack on the e file, also protecting the weak pawn on f3. I continue with the knight redevelopment, knight to d6, and here white plays king to f1. So he's not interested in castling, but he does want to get out of the attack on the e file. But he likes where his rook is at this point because he wants to push the h pawn. And this is actually another move I don't like by white. It's too aggressive, it will get punished. Knight to f5, attacking his queen, which was placed in the center, but also attacking the pawn on e3. Now I couldn't attack the pawn with my queen, but I can attack it with my knight. So his queen goes to f4, hoping to still provide protection for the e pawn, but he overlooked knight to h5, attacking his queen. Now white may have been thinking that he can escape with queen to g4, attacking both knights and being able to retreat to the h3 square, perhaps even later on making a battery on the h file. But he missed knight to e3 check with the discovered attack on the queen. So queen to g4 doesn't work, and his queen is in danger of being trapped. So my opponent plays the best move available, bishop to a3, counterattacking my own queen. So my queen flees to f6, and here he sacrifices a minor piece in order to save his own queen.